Okay. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. Lovely Wednesday evening. Hope you're having a wonderful one. All right. Well, thank you, those of us on TikTok, for getting us to 2.9k likes. That's actually quite nice. Thank you very much for your support. Particularly Olainka, thank you so much. I saw the tapping and the effect of the tapping. And the rest of us, please let's part up as well. Koboko. I'm on now, young Bill. But thank you very much for being here. Good evening. Good evening. Evening to everybody. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today we're going to be listening to Professor Banji Akintoye. Once a week we listen to elders, both living and those who have gone to the great beyond. We learn from them. Since we started this series, we've been learning from folks like Chief Samuel Akintoye. Last week we listened to Chief Bolage. Today we're going to be listening to Professor Banji Akintoye, who is still very much with us. And there are many more that we're going to be listening to. Next week will be very lovely. We're going to move into something a bit different with the person we're going to be listening to, and then the week after that, and so on and so forth. So every time we come, we'll be learning from each other and also from the elders who are ahead of us. All right, so that's what we'll be doing today. Today we'll be listening to Professor Banji Akintoye as he speaks on the untold genius of the Yoruba civilization. I think it's important for us to hear more of those things so that we know exactly who we are and how far we've come, so that we also understand the fact that when we build, we're building on a foundation that has already been set by our forebears. Okay, before we go on today, Perizim Wali Ekason. I hope we're good. Okay. So thank you. Good afternoon, Perizim. Okay. So before we get into the conversation, if you're on YouTube, please like the live and share as well. If you're on Facebook, kindly like and share. For those of us on Twitter, please like and repost. We do all those things to make sure that we're able to have others who haven't seen our live stream, get to be part of it. If you're on TikTok, please bar tap and also click on the heart icon above the image of Professor Banji Akintoye. Kindly click on that the heart icon, and you can drop a heart to me, drop a gift. These things help to get the live to the FYP. So please let's do that together in order to push the live together. Having said that, Professor Banji Akintoye is someone who needs no introduction. I'm sure you've heard about him, or you've heard him speak, or you've read his book or his books. I usually reference his books, particularly A History of the Yoruba People. A History of the Yoruba People by Professor Stephen Banji Akintoye. It's one of the seminal books on Yoruba history, and I love it. It's a book that you have to keep reading. Like, no matter how many times you've read it, you have to keep reading it, because there's always something new to learn. And I believe, I'm sure, I've read a number of his books, right? He's a fantastic writer. But that particular one, I think to me, maybe one of the most important books you have to read if you want to understand Yoruba history. Not the only one, apparently, but it's one of the most important books you have to read in order to understand it. Please give me a second. Give me a second, I'll be back. All right, so we're back. Thank you very much for staying tuned. So, like I was saying, I believe History of the Yoruba People is one of the most important books to read if you're going to understand, Yoruba history and all of that. Okay, is an Odu when she Mofun Oloko. But then, just in case you're hearing the name for the first time, we're going to be reading his bio before we listen to him. Again, let's keep the likes going. We are coming like the Mark Benson. Kindly like the live. Let's share. Let's make sure that we push the FYP. Okay. So here goes the bio. Professor Stephen Banji Akintoye was born on February 18, 1935. He's a renowned Nigerian historian, academic, and politician. He is widely considered one of the leading authorities on Yoruba history and is a prominent figure in the movement for Yoruba self-determination. Professor Akintoye has had a distinguished career in academia spanning several decades. He attended Christ School, Ado-Ekiti, before earning a degree in history from the University College Ibadan, then affiliated with the University of London in 1961. What were you in 1961? I'm sure a lot of us were around, but people like me, it is well. So, yeah, he earned a degree in history from the University College Ibadan, then affiliated with the University of London in 1961. He later obtained his PhD in history from the University of Ibadan in 1966. He served as a professor of history and director of the Institute of African Studies at Obafemi University, then University of Ife, from 1974 to 1977. He has taught African history at several U.S. institutions, including the University of South Florida, Montgomery County Community College, and Eastern University in Pennsylvania. Major publications. His most acclaimed work is A History of the Yoruba People, published in 2010, which is regarded as a definitive text on the politics in Yoruba land, 1840 to 1893, and 10 years of the University of Ife. Professor Akintoye was actively involved in Nigerian politics during the Second Republic. He served as a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1979 to 1983, representing the old Ondo state under the Unity Party of Nigeria, UPN. During his time in the Senate, he served on committees for foreign relations, petroleum and energy, and internal affairs. He was a Nigerian delegate to the World Conference on Actions Against Apartheid in London, 1981, and participated in a fraternal visit to the Soviet Union in 1982. For years, Akintoye has become the face of the Yoruba self-determination movement. He is the founder and leader of Ilana Omoodua Worldwide, an organization advocating for the independence of the Yoruba nation from Nigeria. He has consistently called for a peaceful breakaway or a referendum, citing security challenges and the worsening plight of the Yoruba people within the Nigerian state. As of 2026, he remains a vocal advocate for these causes, frequently communicating through open letters to the Nigerian government and international bodies like the United Nations and the UK government. All right, so that's his bio. Let me say something before we get on with this conversation. We don't listen to elders because we agree with everything they say. We listen to them because there's a lot of wisdom we can glean from them. Okay? I said that to say that just the same way we listen to SLA and we can still say, okay, we don't agree with some things, that's the same way I listen to elders. But regardless of what you know, there's a lot more they know that you, even if it's just one thing they know that you don't know, it's important to be able to learn that from them. I said that to say that whilst I don't think that Yoruba nation requires secession, I still think that there's a lot to learn from this man. Okay? And Yoruba nation is a nation with or without secession. That's what I believe. And but that doesn't change the fact that he's our father and we have a lot to learn from him. Having said that, I'm going to like you to listen to this video. This is Professor Banji Akintoye as he speaks on the untold genius of the Yoruba civilization. It's a two-part video There's two parts to it. There's one where he's speaking, the other one, the questions and answers. So if we have enough time, we'll go to the second part later. But this first one is actually very good, and I'm sure you're going to learn a lot listening to Professor Banji Akintoye. Please, as you listen, kindly power tap. Let's share the live. Let's make it go round. Thank you very much. Enjoy. Sorry, it just occurred to me, I should have said this. It just occurred to me that I didn't tell you where this took place. So this was actually a conversation that was held in 2016, hosted by Dawn Commission. That's a body I talk about every time. So this particular session was held 12 August 2016, but the things they discussed at the time are still very relevant to us today. So think about conferences and seminars and stuff to enlighten and sensitize Yoruba people, so that's to tell you how much work those organizers have done, making things a lot easier for folks in SWDC. Tomorrow I'm going to be talking about something that happened with a development commission in Nigeria, and just to tell you that we are not there yet, but we have a good head start, and we can just build on what they've done. So I said I was about to say that this particular stuff you're about to listen to was an event organized by Dawn Commission in 2016, August. Okay, so let's go on and enjoy the lecture.
Cleopatra and his people, as they went from town, we marched everywhere. Large, young. I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be sitting here, facing you, talking to you, looking at your beautiful faces. And I'm happy that Professor Olaniyan is here. I sent him an email about 2 weeks ago. I told him, where are you? I need to be in contact with members of my Ife tribe. That is the academic community of the University of Obafemi University of my time. That's when the world was young. I want to start by saying I congratulate you all for being members of the Urbanization. When I talk about the Urbanization, it's easy for people who may be critical or who may not particularly want to hear to say, oh, don't mind if he just being chauvinistic. It is not true. I speak from a knowledge of our history in comparison with the history of other people. And what I find all the time sometimes beats my own imagination. that on this continent of Africa, in the black world in Africa, our great-grandfathers somehow managed to do something that no other person, no other nation did. That is, we built towns and cities with walls and palaces and huge marketplaces and so on. So you ask yourself, what was the dynamic factor, the fundamental factor that creates a people to be different from all the others? There are a few other people at some cities, like Ẹkáàbọ had one huge city, like the Hausa had 7 major cities, separated by vast territories of grassland. But Yoruba succeeded in building town after town, city after city. And then you ask yourself, how, why? What was so different about them that made them achieve this? The importance of cities and towns is this. A certain man, a certain intellectual like me, an old man, Peter Hill, Professor Peter Hill, wrote a book some years ago. He studied the effect of towns and cities in the history of peoples. And he came to this very important conclusion, that when a people somehow manage to lift their civilization to the level of building cities and towns, they are creating a platform for very radical development of their civilization after that. That no major jump in civilization in the history of the human race has happened outside the context of this town or city. So when people gather themselves together in a town and cities, that they begin to elevate their civilization very rapidly. And the Yoruba did that. And you have to ask yourself, how did we arrive at it? To show you how copious this development is, let me, before the first Europeans to come to the coast of West Africa had come in the 15th century, the 1470s and so on. And we were in contact with them along the coast. Mostly our people who lived along the coast were in contact with them. But no white man ever went into the interior of Yoruba land until more than 4 centuries after that. And the first one who did so was an English explorer named Clapperton. Hugh Clapperton. He and his people came in December 1825 and entered from Badagry and traveled from Badagry through the Egbado country, which we now call Yewa country, and ended up in Oyoile, the city of Oyoile, and not this Oyo that you know. There is a great city of Oyoile that later perished. Well, that's something. That's a city we must recreate, by the way. We can't leave that great piece of our history in the jungle forever. We have to recreate that city. We have to go back there and put a great city there. He was in Oyoile, and he and his people were in Oyoile. They traveled from there northward, and then their survivor finally came back there, and then went back to the coast. When did they say what? Yoruba. Something very unique. They said from the moment they left the coast, they were going from town to town at short distances from one another. Usually, as the noise of a city or town is receding behind them, the noise of another town or city is beginning to sound in front of them. And they said some of these cities were heavily populated. Every city was surrounded with a wall. You know how we Yoruba built our walls? Dig a big trench and keep the earth from the trench in the interior, so that the enemy who is coming to attack our town will first of all have to go into the trench and then find his way up. That's how we build our city walls. And one of perhaps the greatest city wall of all was built around what is now Ijebu-Ode, the city wall that is known as the Eredo. Now, some people have done a research on Eredo, the Ijebu-Ode city wall, and they have brought and have told us in their reports that this is one of the largest man-made structures on earth. It can be seen from satellites. Yeah. They said the amount of... They said, how did our people build these city walls? Who are we? Why are we so different from others? Why is it that there is no other people on the Black Africa who ever built anything like these towns or cities that we built? It's very interesting. And within the context of those cities and towns, listen, before I go, once I talked about these cities and walls, America, there was in my audience a young poet from Poland, and he said, sir, what you are saying, sir, is that Yoruba land was even more urbanized than Europe. So I told him, I never adapted my mind to that. He said, it is true, sir. There was no nation in Europe as of 1825 that was as heavily urbanized as we are describing now. And that has led me to go back and find, real comparison. Because we have been that heavily urbanized as early as the time the first Europeans came to the coast of West Africa. In 1533, one Portuguese explorer trader said in Lagos, he said, 10 leagues up north from here, there is a large city called Ibu, that's Ijebu-Ode, surrounded by a famous wall. And Ijebu-Ode was, as of that point in time, at least 400 years old. And Ijebu-Ode is not the oldest of our cities. There are others that were much older. Ife, the first of them all. Ketu in as far east in Efa today in Benin Republic. Ilaogun, Ilesha, Ondo, and so on. All those cities are great old cities. We Yoruba don't have any new cities. All over Africa, most cities were built by colonialist rulers in the course of the 20th century. I don't want to offend anybody by mentioning any names, but sit down and think of the other cities that you have in southern Nigeria today, with the exception of Benin and the Yoruba cities. And they were almost all built by European people who colonized Nigeria at the beginning of the 20th century. Enugu, Owerri, Abakaliki, Port Harcourt. They didn't exist before the white man colonized us. Whereas we had cities everywhere, all over our homeland. And these are not young cities, they are old cities. The only cities we can call new cities in Yoruba land are the few that we built in the 19th century. Not in the 20th century, that we ourselves built in the 19th century. We built Ibadan in the 19th century. Ibadan was a small Eba village. There were people, large numbers of people fleeing from troubles in other parts of Yoruba and came and settled and developed into a great city immediately. And it became our most dynamic city, led mostly by young men. I was telling the Director General a few minutes ago that the young men the men who came and put Ibadan together and called it a town and began to rule it were all. And they made a great success of it. Became the most dynamic of our cities, the home of opportunities, the land of merit. We built Akintoye also in the 19th century. We built Shagamu also in the 19th century. A number of other small ones. Okay, I'm down in the battle. Okay, I've been in Akoko. That's why I got 6 or 7 new towns. All of the rest of the towns and cities that you see in Yoruba land today are nearly 1,000 years old. It is in the context of these cities and towns that we developed our civilization. We, for instance, we Yoruba didn't live in small houses. Or me and my family, me and my wife, my children, our only 2 houses. There was nothing like that in Yoruba land. In every town and city, our ancestors lived in large family compounds called Agboile. The Agboile was one large building with different courtyards, with living quarters in it. Sometimes there were as many as 50 families or 60 families in the large Agboile. We built those structures. So you ask yourself, how did the people who did not have machines, who did not have bulldozers and cranes and so on, how did they manage to build these humongous family compounds? How? I grew up in one. And when I was young, in the town where I was raised, there were only a few families, a few modern houses just coming. Everything was family compound after family compound after family compound. So you ask yourself, how did they build this family compound? What was the technology? When you ask that question, you are jumping into another area of our culture that is unique. We are a people who mastered the art of collaboration. We Yoruba people mastered the art of collaboration. Today, when you want to build your house, you hire somebody to do the plan for you. It's you and your wife and your children. No, in ancient times, when the Yoruba family decides, or the head, somebody has prospered, he wants to create a compound or whatever, he doesn't talk only to his wife and children. Everybody knows that he is going to do it, and they come and surround him. The whole community holding hands, clear the land, begin to make the mud walls, go into the bush to go and find, to go and touch the materials for making the roof. Those who have the skill go onto the roof and put it together, and put the roof there, and annually repair the roofs, and so on. That's how. And we built these things, these huge family houses without slave labor. We Yoruba had never had, we had some slaves if you were lucky. If my village, what your village over some land or something, and happened occasionally. Although we didn't have big wars. And then you were lucky to be captured by our side, you become a slave to one of the chiefs on our side. That's all. And so there were a few slaves in Yoruba. But slave labor was not a major factor in our economic life. Collaboration was the big factor. And it was not only in the building of houses, or the building of palaces, or the building of marketplaces, or the building of city walls. No. It was also in the making of the individual's economic life. So, on the farm, for instance, collaboration was developed into powerful institutions, whereby an old man like me, I can still make a very large farm. How? Even though I don't have the energy to even beg one single people anymore, I can still be the owner year after year of very large farms. How? Because there was an institution called Owe. Owe means that one person can announce of his children and his children's children and his children's children, his daughter's husbands, and their relations and friends and so on, and say, on so date, I want to start to make my farm, and I want you to come and work with me. And they will come. They will clear the land, if that is the job for the day. Or the young man will take up there and clear the land. He didn't have to pay them anything. That's an institution. All he needed to give to them is food for the day as they are working. And if he had palm wine, maybe palm wine also. Then when it is time to make the heats, they come back. Or other group come back and they help them to make the heats. So at the end of the day, one single person will make a very large farm and will be able to sell surpluses of food. That's how we were able to produce rich men from among our farmers. There were rich farmers in Yoruba land from very ancient times. But there was another institution that is not Owe. That's the one the individual calls people. The other one is called Aro, which means that a group of in Aro, a group of us young men, we hold a meeting and decide, okay, we form an Aro, 10 of us. All 10 of us will go to the farm, make your farm. All 10 of us will come to my farm, make my farm. All 10 of us will go to the all around. So every one of the 10 of us will then have a large farm that we could never have been able to make on our own. That's how we prosper. We prosper. We are a prosperous nation. And in the town, the same collaboration system worked. Usually it is the women. Now, women are a different type of breed of women from the rest of the world. Period. I mean, that's, so when I say that, people say, oh, Prof. I say, yeah, well, yeah, I mean, what I'm saying, the Yoruba woman is a different sort of woman. Yeah, the Yoruba woman is a different sort of person, a different type of woman. Very industrious people. They just created the commercial success for our nation. We men don't trade. Yoruba men, there's no way to compete with Yoruba women in trade. They were the greatest traders on the African continent. And they took Yoruba trade not only within Yoruba land, but into other parts of Africa, as far away as the Upper Nile, in what is South Sudan and South Sudan. Yeah, our women created commercial colonies all over the place. But I was talking of the collaboration in the town. They created what is known as a sisu. That's something that only we had. A susu, which means that a group of us will come together, maybe neighbors in an area, go there, they come together and say, we are creating an sisu and we are appointing you as our leader. So how does the sisu run? It runs by, we will decide, this is the amount, unit. The unit of a sisu is, okay, let's say 10 naira in today's money. 10 naira. Everybody on the day after market day are contributed their 5 naira. There are 20 of us, that's 200 naira. The head of the sisu group will then give all the 200 naira to number one. Before we start, we would have agreed the order in which we are going to line up. So you give the 200 naira to the first one. Next time, he will give the 200 naira to the second one. The one after, he will give the 200 until all the 20 of us have had a chance. And then we'll start another one. That's a sisu, powerful means of creating wealth. Because and there was discipline in it, enormous discipline. Lateness will bring your sisu. It is not tolerated. You know it. Everybody knew it. You don't bring your sisu late. And if you do happen to have the habit of bringing your sisu late, you might be expelled. And that's a disaster for you if you are expelled. Because one, even if you are number 2 or 3 in the list, and you are expelled, you will have to wait until all the others before you get the little you have contributed. You will have to wait till the very end. And also the news will go around that you have been expelled from an sisu and you have had yourself ill luck. Because it will be difficult for you to find another sisu group that will ever touch you again. They won't let you, they won't accept you. And the story will go around, you are irresponsible and you are difficult to do business with. And so you created a misfortune for yourself. So a sisu is not something one handled carelessly. You don't have the money when the day comes to contribute to your sisu, you go and borrow it. Or you go and fight your husband. and force him to give you the money. That is it. The result is our women could be rich. And there is no town in Yoruba land. There is no town in Yoruba land that does not have stories of rich women. There is no such town in Yoruba land. That where you go to talk about the economic history of this town, can you remember Baba Lagbaja used to have make huge farms and so on and so forth in his time, and they will talk about a man who used to do that 5-6 centuries ago and so on and so forth. But they will also talk about a woman or some women who are also very rich, who are the richest people in society, who have more money than everybody, men or women. So that's it. That's the type of people we were. They even extended it to cotton yarn. Cotton yarn. You know, women spin cotton to make threads. When you have a bundle of that, that's what is called yarn for weaving cloths. Okay? Some women will get together in the neighborhood and say, okay, we're going to start an owu or yarn. That is an esisu in owu, not in cash. So they would agree, how much of yarn shall we contribute every family? So left. They had their own measure behind the house of a little pole at that end, another pole there. It is measured, and you put around it X number of times. You've created this particular quantity of yarn. So we decide, okay, this is how much yarn we will be contributing. Everybody brings it. The same type of discipline as a period. That's all. Yarn they bring and give it to number one. Take all of the yarn the next time and give it to number two, until all of the members of Owo have taken their turn, and then they will start again. So we Yoruba are constantly creating wealth by collaborating. So one day I sat down and asked myself, in the average Yoruba town, there were usually many Sisu groups. In some small villages, there were Sisu groups. There was no Yoruba town where there was no Sisu group. So I closed my eyes once and I calculated. At a given point in time, even if the amount of money they were contributing was tiny, at a given point in time, how much money were Yoruba people contributing, creating a pool of capital? So that's how we prospered. We prospered by joining hands and creating value adding, creating value creation institutions. Or arrow on the farm, Susu, and so on and so forth. And that's how we lived. So we were prosperous people. We were not poor. We are poor today because once in Owo, when I was doing research, I was talking about all these things, Sisu, etc. And one old woman sat. I was talking to a chief, and his wife, his mother, sat near us. She listened. He said, "Hello, mommy, that's me. Hello, mommy. Ẹkùn ló dà mú Ọlọ́run tó wò ní ṣàjákájá." You hear that, you can become emotional. Ẹkùn ló dà mú Ọlọ́run tó wò ní ṣàjákájá. We are not used to poverty as a nation. We are not used to poverty. We are living today in poverty that we have never seen before. And we must find our ways out of it quickly before we get used to it. Greatest. Listen to this very carefully. He said, large plantations of yam, large plantations of corn, large plantations of cotton, large plantations of indigo. You know what indigo is? plant from which our women got dye for dyeing clothes. Large plantations of indigo. And they finally concluded in their writing, we are dealing here with a phenomenally industrious nation. We are dealing with a very industrious nation. And they said, these are an unusually hospitable people. You see, our people had never seen a white man before, except our people who lived on the coast. But in the interior, we had never seen white men before. So, as the Klapatin and his group came, crowds of people would go and gather and watch them as they sat under a tree in the marketplace. And they said, but they would gather there and see us. They are surprised to see us. We are white, we are different. But nobody, in no town or village, did anybody say any rude thing to us. There was no rudeness. There was a desire to help. In one place, Klapatin was tired, sat by the roadside, not in the town. A Yoruba man rode his horse to the point. Came down and said, what's the trouble? Leader, I want you to and so on. You know, our leader is tired and so on. He said, can he ride a horse? Yeah. He said, okay, let him come and ride my horse. Put him on his horse and took him to the next town. That's who we are. In one place, one of the white men became very sick, apparently some very harsh attack of malaria, and he was shivering and so on. So they went and called the local Babalawo, the town's Babalawo, and he came and looked at him and went back home. And when I brought some medication and gave it to him to drink. They wrote in their memo, in their travel journal. After he drank the potion, his sickness disappeared like a miracle. Yoruba had very highly developed knowledge of medicine, of our own medicine. But we've thrown it all away, or mostly all of it. That's who you are. That's where you come from. We're a nation, and then how do we govern ourselves? In 1854 to 55, one American missionary traveled in Yoruba land for about 4 years. He kept traveling, visiting most towns of Yoruba land and so on. And in the book he wrote afterwards, he said, listen to this very carefully. He said, among us white people of the world, the greatest institution of governmental excellence is the balance of power to prevent abuse of powers. Balance of power. You create an institution, you create another institution to balance it. So we Yoruba created the king. Yes, the king is the ruler. The king is the ruler. Is the Oriaye and so on, the king is the Orisha. Okay. But he is not the person making our laws. Our chiefs, chosen from the various compounds, Agoile, and the people go to the palace, sit there with him throughout the day, every day, to consider the issues of the town and make the laws. But when they have made the laws, they dared not say that they had made the law. The king had made the law, and it was announced as the king's law. But it was strictly forbidden for the king to make any law by himself. If he did that, they will remove him from the throne. So the king knew that he cannot just sit and talk to his wife and his friends and make a law. He has to attend the meeting of the council of chiefs, where they will make the laws. And then when they had made the laws, it was his law, the king's law. So can you see? The king cannot make the law. The council must make the law. But the council cannot say we make the law. It is the king who has made the law. Can you see the beautiful balance? And that is the balance that gave us very respectable government all over Yoruba. This man is saying, this is what he said. He said, among us white people, we believe that the greatest thing we've created for good government in the world, for ourselves, is to create balance of powers, to prevent abuse of powers. He said, strange as it may seem, I'm quoting now, these people called Yoruba had mastered the principle and the balance, the principle and the practice of the balance of power long before us Europeans. Long before our fathers settled in America. And long before the Magna Carta in England. You know the story of the Magna Carta? Sometime in the Middle Ages, about 1200 something, the barons of England gathered together, started a war against the king and said, you must, we have to divide power here. There are things you cannot do, there are things and so on and so forth. And that is regarded in European history as the beginning of democratic government among white people. This man is saying, long before that Magna Carta, these Yoruba people have been practicing the principle of balance of power. That's who we are. When there is a king, it becomes unpopular among Europeans, they want to remove him. Some prince will have start a plot, and then there will be a rebellion, and then there will be civil war, and then they will kill one another. And if the rebels win, then they will execute the king, and so on and so forth. No, we Yoruba were more decent than that. If a king became irresponsible, began to break the rules, or become rejected because of immorality or something, there was always in every kingdom a committee that had the duty of going to him and advising him privately, and even rebuking him privately. If that will not change him, then it reached the point at which the committee will now report to other people who have to be reported to. The leaders of the Agboile, the family heads, the other chiefs, the priests, the Ogboni, and so on. I will come to that. And they would hold secret. When they begin to hold secret meetings, the king is in trouble. Because we are not allowed to hold secret meetings and talk about the king. It's not allowed. When you begin to hold secret meetings, you are already sending notice that the king, that his kingship is over. So they decided that he should go. They don't go and kill him. They don't start a rebellion. They don't riot in the streets. A select team of chiefs will go respectfully to the palace. Respectfully. I don't say now, nastily. Yeah, we have decided that he's going, but then you don't go and insult him. No, he's still king. And you still greet him on your knees as you come before him. Yeah. Although what you have come to tell him is that his reign is over. But he's still your king. And you treat him as such. So these chiefs will go before him, go on their knees, and greet him the way they should. And they come here and see. Your people have sent us to tell you, come here, see, that they can see that the bodies of governing have become too heavy for you. And so they have sent us to go and advise you to go to sleep. What does go to sleep mean? They are telling, he knows they have, before they made him king, from the moment they selected him, they had briefed him, taught him. If your people say go to sleep, your duty to your people is to go inside, take care of your affairs, and commit suicide. Remove yourself with dignity so that the kingdom can continue. And the king would do just that. And the arrangements for the king's funeral will start, and the arrangements for the selection of a new king will start. That's who we are, orderly, organized, and so on. We had the Yoruba chief, the Yoruba leader, politician, chief. That's, is the equivalent of today's politician. You let them, they go to House of Assembly, go to House of Rep, become minister, and so on. They're like our chiefs of old. They were expected, and they did carry themselves with uttermost dignity. Kì í bá burúkú lọ́wọ́ ìjòyè. Ìjòyè ò kì í jalè, ìjòyè ò kì í purọ́, ìjòyè ò kì í. Wọ́n ní tó là ń bá ọba, tó là ń bá ìjòyè kì í. Not only they close their wearing, but inside of their tummy, inside of their belly, tó là ń bá ọba, tó là ń bá ìjòyè. It's not only in appearance. Some people think, it's just a clothes. It's not just the clothes. Their conduct in society. You could go to the king and confide in him, knowing fully well that he will keep your confidence. And he's not going to begin to crook things around in order to steal your property. He cannot do so. Because the Yoruba people from the beginning, the ones who created the first kingdoms, knew that human beings can be wicked, human beings can be weak, and begin to do crooked things and disrupt these orderly states that were kingdoms that were created. So they created a powerful institution to guard the conduct and behavior of rulers and chiefs. That institution became known as Ogoni or Oshibo in some places. Everybody who was important in society was expected to be a member of Ogoni. You have to join. And the day you are joining, you are taking some of the most fearful oaths in your life. Oaths of honesty, oath of fairness, oath of decency, and so on. So you take all those oaths and you become a member of Ogoni. Now, if somebody then begins to complain that you've done something to them, ordinary people, you are supposed to be fair in your handling of ordinary people. If anybody then complains against you to say that you cheated them, or you have lied, or you have stolen their property, or you have taken their wife, or such things, then Ogoni will try you. They usually had a place of their meeting, or Iledi. they will try you there. Listen, it doesn't matter who's trying you. Could be your own brother who is appointed to try you. Could be your own brother. And he will sit there. It doesn't matter who it is, because everybody lives under the powerful oath. The man who is sitting there to judge you is not going to show favor to you. He cannot. He's under oath to do only what is true. And you who stand before him to answer, you cannot lie, because you are under powerful oaths that prevents you from lying. So it's openness all the way. And if we then listen to you and they find you guilty, well, more or less what happens to another then happens to you. And when and do anything after that, it's over. So every chief knows that that's under the power they are living in. They are living under that type of power, which they themselves created. And so they were decent, dignified people. Our chiefs were. It's only from the time the British came that chief bribe, justice, and so on and so forth. And now politicians become mightily rich from stealing public property, public money. It couldn't happen in our society. It just couldn't happen. Of course, you can go giving gifts to chiefs and kings and so on is part of civilized society. When there's a festival, rich men go and give gifts to the king. Rich men go and give gifts to their chiefs. Even ordinary poor people go and give gifts. You have yam, go and give yam to your chief. So the rich could never be a poor person. But for him to use his position to cook well, that was impossible. Because he was living under authority that he was afraid of. The chief can tell his wife and his children, they knew he was a member of the government. But that's all they knew. He would never, he was under oath of secrecy. He would never tell you what they do in chambers. He would never, even if his own brother has been found guilty in Ogonia and is going to die before the end of the day, he is not going to get home and tell anybody. That's the way we ruled ourselves. So we had very stable government, decent governments, and our people were protected. The Yoruba man was a freedom-loving person. The Yoruba person could beat his chest and say, and that is the truth. That's what we say. Why? Yeah, and it is true. The chiefs appointed the king, and the chiefs are your representatives. So it is true that you yourself created. In fact, in many Yoruba towns, when they had selected the Oba from a pool of princes, let me take a step back. In kingdoms all over the world, the king is succeeded by his son or his first child anyway. And the people have nothing to do with it. The king dies, his daughter, his first son or daughter becomes king or queen. And the common people, the citizens, have no voice in the matter. It's a natural thing. King dies, his son or daughter replaces him. In Yoruba land, our fathers rejected that. How they came to reject it, we don't know. We historians don't know. We know they rejected it. But why? How? How did our ancestors make themselves so different from everybody around them. We don't know. But we know they were different. So they said, no, Abaku, no way, not here. We ourselves will select our king. So there is a pool of princes, sons of the king who have just died, sons of former kings, even grandchildren, grandsons of kings, and so on. So they will compile a list of all those princes and find out which of them, even if you are not interested, it doesn't matter. They will decide which of them they want for their king. If he likes to be king, he will gladly accept and they will begin to restore him. If he doesn't like to be king, they will go and get him. Yeah. It was very common for people to go around and hide because they didn't want to be king, and for the chiefs to go and find them and drag them out of there and make them kings. The people had adjudged you the best man to be our king. So whether you like it or not, you will be our king. If you want to do it and you make yourself available, okay, ceremony. If you don't want it and you go out, I will go and find you there. I will drag you out and make you king. That's how we do it. So it is a matter of merit. Who among these princes will be our best king now? So they will choose you, and they didn't want to know whether you are interested or not interested, and they will make you king. That is it. And so we also have provision for removing a king when he misbehaves. Wonderful people, our ancestors. And now we live we can go back to our culture and begin to recreate the decency and beauty of our lives as a people. How we're going to do that, I don't know. But we have to do it. The people cannot allow itself to be totally cut off from its roots and expect to prosper. How are you going to prosper? Yeah, you can't. You can't throw away all that have beautified our lives for 1,000 years. And then say we want to develop. Develop what? How are you going to do it? That's who we Yoruba people are. But I'm sure that I've taken a lot of the time many of you will want to ask questions. I might have one or two things to add more afterwards. But if you want to ask any questions, is that the way? Yes. If you want to ask any questions, I would like to answer them now. But let me, before that one, there was a time in our history, not so long ago, in the 1950s, when all these traditions in a very creative way gave us leadership and government that was unique on the African continent. We had a government of our own leaders, led by a man called Urbanization, come from a small village called Ẹkáàbọ. It doesn't matter where you come from. Yoruba culture is the same everywhere. And he led a group of people like himself who respected the culture of the Yoruba people, who loved the Yoruba people. And he gave us a government that was the most productive government on the African continent. For one thing, we immediately adopted the electoral system and we ran it better than anywhere else. We in the western region of the time, we never feared that anybody was going to rig our election. We had the stories of elections being rigged in other parts of Nigeria, candidates being arrested by local government or police and they're being locked up and beaten up so that they will not stand against some people. We never had such things in the western region. Never. Oh, there was a lot of tough campaigning for it. And even Chief Aolo had an opponent in his own village who wanted to beat him there, tried to beat him there. And here in Ibadan, one of our most charismatic politicians, Chief Adegoke Aolo could never beat him there. No way. No matter what you are, give the people free education, give water, give something. When election comes, we knew how to get the people excited and go and vote for him. I vote for Awolowo. And there were many other towns like that. In Ilesha, Chief and so on. They will beat the other candidate easily. Yeah. But nobody tried to use the power of government to pervert the votes of the people. Never. In fact, in 1954, federal election 1954, the opposition party led by Alhaji Adelabu beat the Chief Awolowo's action group in the western region. We are freedom-loving people. We've been selecting our own rulers from the beginning of time. For at least 1,000 years, we know that from the foundation of Ife, which is our oldest city. We've been selecting our own rulers. We've been selecting our kings and selecting our chiefs. When a chief died, the people in the compound will hold meetings and wrangle and abuse one another and fight and finally select somebody. One is selecting is their chief. That's the way we rule ourselves. And Yoruba man in any meeting, whether it's the meeting of the family or the meeting of an traditional association of age grade, or professional organization like anthems organization or whatever, when there is a meeting holding, every member has a right to speak. And once you are speaking, you are listening to respectfully. You are listening to. And when, even if you are a child, we Yorubas are modern lọ́gbọ́n, àgbà lọ́gbọ́n, la fi dá the Ifẹ̀. That's our first kingdom. Ọmọdé lọ́gbọ́n, àgbà lọ́gbọ́n. Whether you are young or you are old, you have a little wisdom of yours to contribute. And you have to be allowed to contribute it. That's our culture. The result is that the Yoruba man knew that he is one of the rulers of the land. He is one of the selectors of the people who rule the land. And that if he stands up in any meeting before the king, he is free to say whatever he wants to say. And nobody can touch him. In fact, we had a traditional festival in every town. During which the ordinary people go about drink a lot of palm wine, make a lot of noise, eat a lot of good food, and abuse the king and the chiefs. Yeah. Just say what you want to say about them. Only one day they celebrated one in Ibadan here when Kobe, who was the Olubadi. And the young men were going around saying, Kobi Owuso Pao, Kobi Owuso didn't have that disease. They just wanted to achieve it. 2 days later, Tribune people went to see him, and Kobi Owuso said, "Hey, young man, Tribune, so powerful." That's, you are free to say anything, and the authorities have no power to interfere with you. You go stand in front of the palace and you abuse the Yoruba. And then he's only. That's how free we were. A story about that type of situation in 1978 to 86. There was a war between Ibadan and Ekiti and Ijesha on the other side near Okemesi. And the leader of the Ekiti army was a chief called Ogedegbe. Tough man, tough warrior. And the missionaries and officials of the British government went to the camps to beg both sides to end the war and go home. So the missionaries and these white people went around talking to the, in their spare time, talking to the soldiers. And when they got to one place, they found a group of young men. The young man had drunk palm wine and so on. And he came out and said, it is our decision. A young man says, it's our decision to hold our camp here until the Ibadan people have gotten away and got tired and gone away. And if they were to try to change that, we will cut off his head. Talking of the commander-in-chief of his army like that. But that's the Yoruba one for you. We love our freedom, and we want to exercise it everywhere. And create an independent country of their own, a slave society country. So that's who we are. That's who we are. As the old woman in our said, thank you.
All right, thank you so much for listening. You've been listening to Professor Stephen Banji Akintoye, and he's been talking about the untold genius of the Yoruba. I chose to title his speech. This is a question in that video. Which is the second part of the. To know if I want to ask you if it's okay to listen to part of that, because it's quite long. It's over an hour, but I think some of the questions some of the answers he provided actually, like gold mines. Like you could actually learn a lot from the answers. So I think we should listen to some of it. Actually, I'm telling you what I think. And maybe not everything, but enough for us to learn a bit more. Is that okay? YouTube call. Is that? Are we good? Okay. So I've seen. Let's have the Q&A. We'll take as much as we can. And if you have any questions, please feel free to write in the comment section. If you'd like to add to the conversation, feel free to send your request. I'll bring people up very soon. Thank you very much, user and co.
My colleague will be moving around with the microphone. If you have questions, I think the format is we'll take all the questions at once.
I think I'm particularly privileged. Yeah. If I can remember very well, my name is Shade Taiwo. I work with NICE as a researcher. I'm not very sure. I can remember very well. You influenced us to mobilize in the 60s to go and line the road to wave Awolowo in on his way from prison.
Yeah.
And it was such an ecstasy. People were even wanting to lie on the road for the car to run us over because the excitement, and you were there ringing the bell and shouting and hailing us, and we were shouting for miles and miles. People were weeping, crying, because as young as we were then, we realized what he did. We all benefited from free education, and it was quality education. In fact, that time, if you finished secondary school, you could go anywhere, you could do anything. We were brighter than the PhDs of today at that time. So I thank you again, sir. I salute you and remember I was in that crowd with mommy shouting, everybody, whoa, whoa, whoa. One is the question. You mentioned Oyo Ile, and also nostalgically, my grandmother used to talk about Oyo Ile. Where exactly is the location? Because she told us how they went and this war, and they landed in Kuti village in Benin Republic, and then the war took them back to Yewaland and all that. She mentioned, so I don't really know where the location is at, because you are now advising that it should be
Yeah, we are going to use
okay.
Of course, yes.
So that is one question. Two, this lecture today, very enlightening. I think it's the basis for advocacy. Because there is, knowledge is good, but these days, if we don't use knowledge to improve our lives, then we're just wasting time. So this could be a basis for advocacy. How do you think we can use some of the information we have gotten here today to improve ourselves as a society? Like the DG said, this is not a political forum, so we are talking about development. How do we use some of the good facts that you have given us to rebuild the Southwest as a burgeoning economy? That's one. Two, how can we influence the academia to engage in multidisciplinary studies that can influence development? Because so far, I'm in the research community, and I know that so far everybody is in their enclaves. Despite the fact that all over the world, there are all sorts of multidisciplinary things going on. I've been talking to Dr. Oni just now about this problem. How do we influence academia, well, in the country and in the region? If we can, how can our governors contribute to multidisciplinary research that can influence policy and development in West Africa and Western Nigeria? Thank you.
Well, if you want me to answer it, you will better let me do so right away. And okay, so the first question is, where is Oyoile? If you go to Ilorin, you go northwest of Ilorin. If you want to go to Jeba, you go directly north to Jeba. That's the last Yoruba town on the Niger, Jeba. But you're not going to Jeba. You want to go to Oyoile, you have to go northwest of Ilorin, and it will be something like between 45 and 50 miles from Ilorin. Yeah, it was a huge city. As I said, Clapati got there in 1826 January, and they saw it at a distance, a great city with a great wall around it. Beautiful place. The largest marketplace in Yoruba, the largest palace in Yoruba. I think as of that day, the most prestigious king in Yoruba. We are going to rebuild that city. We can't leave it in the bush. Yeah. Today, it's grassland with lions and so on roaming the streets. But we are going to put a university there, and we are going to put a new city there by the grace of God.
The other questions are there.
Okay. How do we use the information about our history for advocacy? Well, the first step is already been taken here. The first step is already been taken here. When the Dawn Commission started these history conversations, they are bringing the knowledge of our history to the group. When you leave this place today, your contacts with people outside there is going to be at least a little different than it has been before. That's the beginning of advocacy. You are bringing new knowledge to people. If you are married, you are talking to your husband. If you are a mother or a father, you're talking to your child. This is what I know now that I didn't know before. That's the beginning. But in addition to that, we Yorubas learn to create independent institutions that have nothing to do with government, to do particular things. Yeah. When I was young, we used to do that a lot. We had the progressive unions that we used to influence development in our towns and cities. When Chief Auro was there, I said, free education. Who are the people who went wild all over Yoruba? The progressive associations and unions. The result is that when school day came, the first school day of free education, Chief Auro got many more children than they had planned for. So there were not enough schools, not enough teachers, not enough something. And our people began to advise, no, let us suspend the teaching. I said, no, we have entered into it and we are going to save it. And they fought and stayed it. That was a man. That was a man. So that is it. And we younger ones at that time created what we call students' unions. I was president of the Students' Union for some time. I was first secretary, then president later, and so on. And we used to do things to excite our parents, send your children to school and so on. We need to go back to those things. Associations that have no other purpose. They're not looking for election. They're not looking for anybody's votes. They are just young people who love their community and want to give something to their community. They want to make beautiful noises that change society. That's how we were doing. They were making beautiful noises. Oh, we're going to hold our annual conference of Ekiti Students' Union in Ikole. Oh, the people of Ikole will hear it. The upper will call a meeting. They will go and buy cows and slaughter cows for us to eat when we come. And the women will volunteer and do the cooking. And the whole town will be moving for the 2 or 3 days we're there, and we go away. Then next year is fun. And so we used to do those things. No substance. There was nothing we had to give other than our presence and our noise. And those things changed society. We need to begin to do those things again. Thank you.
One more question there.
So one more question there. Influencing the university communities to begin to create multidisciplinary institutions. That's not so easy now. The universities are very proud. Well, yeah, that's what universities are by nature, very proud. They don't want... They don't easily listen, but we must begin to, as I said, if you create a sort of institutions that I spoke about, progressive unions, students associations, etc., it becomes easier to influence the university. When they were going to create the University of Ife, every organization in Yoruba land had a voice in the matter. That's the Yoruba way. Okay, people of Western region, we are going to build our university. We are going to put it in our...
Sorry, sir. I think maybe I didn't answer the question correctly. I said, how can we encourage our governors to support some studies in universities that they can use, that they can apply to the development of the region? At least if the government sets up a research grant or something, people will be attracted to it and will apply. We need to now encourage our governors to see whether they can sponsor such research.
Oh, well, I wish you luck. Our governors, wow, they are talking of the gods. Any other question?
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, Prof.
Good afternoon, sir.
My name is Olayinka Abuola. People call me Parrot. Sir, my question is very simple because some of the times I used to get confused when I listen to eminent scholars like your good self talking about how Yorubas hate poverty, how we can get out. Then this adage you just give me now because I'm holding on to it firmly. All the principles embedded in these sayings, can we now compare to what you Agbalagba people will call Omoluabiism? Can we now, because poverty has eaten so deep. Now you cannot see Omoshe, vulcanized Omoshe, bricklayer, everybody is riding Okada. The governments do not know the implication of this. Can we, is there any way we can institutionalize some kind of, because from what my sister asked now about government or governors putting some things together, plans together to help promote all these things we're talking about. And of course we all know that that is a far cry. We cannot even start to think about it. So can you yourself, Professor Akintoye, Professor Banji, can you come up with some kind of because maybe we younger ones can. Please, I'm confused. I don't want you to enlighten me and let us just move forward. God bless you, sir.
Thank you. Yeah.
Chair.
It is painful watching a people who are very good at creating wealth. The Yorubas are very good at creating wealth. Better than most other nations. We are very good at creating wealth. It's very painful watching that same nation now squirming around in the mud of poverty without knowing what to do. But the answer is this. I know that with proper handling of our situation, you can make the Yoruba nation a prosperous nation in 3 or 4 years from it. Why am I talking like that? In the 1970s, when I was much younger, I was a young university professor. We tried to create something that would give prosperity not just to the Yoruba nation but to Nigeria forever. We created a party, a political party, a unity party. And I was one of the intellectual instruments of that party. And we sat down and did a lot of studies of the situation. And we came to a number of very specific directions of what we were going to do. Unfortunately, they said we didn't win the election. But even in the southwest where we won, there was someone from Brazil and said, "You are returning home tomorrow?" I said, "Yes." I said, "No, you go to Brazil and you go to Argentina." I want to find out how do they manage to produce so much meat for export. So I had to go there. On another occasion, I was in Brazil also, incidentally. And I called him and said, my research is over here. He said, "No, there is a conference of small business development, World Council of Small Business Development, holding in California. Can you go there? Can you at all manage it, Banji?" You don't say no to Chief Awolowo. I didn't have the money. But so I had to use my brain. I had friends in Florida where I had been visiting professor before. So I flew to them and told them I have a problem. I have to go to California, which is on the other coast, America, and then find my way back to New York to be able to get back to Nigeria. So they contributed money and gave it to me. I was able to fly there and do what, and write a report on small business development. In the light of that, I had to go now to Singapore, where a man called Lee Kuan Yew was carrying out a revolution in small business development and the training of people. And so we know what to do. Yes, sir. Believe me, the Yoruba people know what to do. The Yoruba people have the knowledge of how to turn their society around. There are powerful obstacles. God will show us how to deal with those obstacles. Amen. That's all.
Thank you very much, sir. I am really concerned. I want to thank you again because when you mentioned the song about Yoruba and Obiru, you brought back the memory of my grandmother. She was one of the wives in the Banji of Obiru and she sang a lot of songs. One of them was about Yoruba and Akieli. He happened to support Chief Awolowo then. And the people like Chief Akintoye, she told us, coined some song about Awolowo Naja kan, Akinyele Naja Awolowo. So these are the things we heard from us that actually rekindle our interest in the tradition of the average Yoruba. But what I've observed these days, your generation had it well. And you met those things, you are able to experience those things. But today, when you do some basic things as a Yoruba child or something, people see it as something. Some time ago, I was at the UI gate where they sell bananas. And I was talking to banana woman, she was shocked. She told me that for years, she had never heard someone coming out of the University of Banana saying, okay, they will say either plantain or okay, So that is it. Another time was that I was telling a nephew of mine that Toba Fole were told you Ojuto. The boy was looking at me. Uncle, please, what is Ojuto? Say, that waterway in the bathroom, make sure you wash it so that the water can go. We've lost so many things, sir. We've lost many. So my question is this, sir. You've advocated that, okay, we should go back to the basics, but how do you go back to what you don't know and what you don't appreciate? Our problem is we don't know and we don't appreciate. Most of us prefer to say, okay, I'm from New York, I want to be like Rihanna. But no, at times when you talk the way I talk, people look at it. I was in a therapy talking to someone, later I talked to another friend who is not a Yoruba speaker person. I was speaking English. The lady was looking at me. So things like this, yes sir, please, what can we do? We've lost it. How can we get it back? Thank you very much.
A time comes in the life of a nation when they realize what they have lost. That question you have asked and the statement you made, we've lost it. How do we get it back? That's a question that Yoruba people all over the world are asking now. I am invited to a meeting in Washington, D.C. What are they talking about? Sir, we've lost it. How do we get it back? I am invited to, I have an invitation in my hand now to address a Yoruba group in London this September. And what is it? The Yoruba heritage. And the question they want to ask is, we've lost it, sir. How do we get it back? You will find it everywhere. It shows that the Yoruba nation has suddenly come to a realization now we've lost it and we must find it back. And that's the beginning of change. That realization is the beginning of change. Thank God for the type of commission you have here, Dawn Commission. They are doing a lot, pointing in the directions as well. Even they are starting these conversations, history conversation is a major step. I am sure they will be broadcasting all this and it's going to begin to affect our people. The beginning is already here. I'm sure in 5 years from now, the Yoruba nation will be different from what it is now. All this slippage downhill is about to stop now. And everybody must be ready to contribute to the change in some little way. One professor, Yoruba professor from Washington, D.C., stopped in the marketplace in Akure, wanted to buy granuts from Yoruba woman who was selling granite. His little son was by his side. He asked a question in Yoruba, and the little boy answered him in Yoruba. The mother whacked at him from behind. No, that was English. Oh, but English you do. And the professor said, Mama, people go down below the Yoruba. You have got a line on bed in school. It is not a bad thing for the father or the mother to have an ambition for what is wrong is that we have not placed before the father and the mother the knowledge that he should so English. That's all. And so we must organize propaganda measures that will show Yoruba people your child can speak Yoruba and learn English at the same time. Àwọn tá à ń kórúkọ ẹ̀dá wọ́n lé ṣó yín ká sóṣù olóṣò òyìnbó tó dáa ju gbogbo ayé lẹ́ni ṣebí Yorùbá àti English náà fi kọ́ ní school ṣebí Yorùbá àti English náà fi kọ́ fún àwọn ọmọ yìí. English teacher wà Yorùbá teacher English teacher ọmọ Yorùbá ló kọ́kọ́ fi kọ́ wa. And we let our parents know one very critical piece of information. The people who have made a lack of studying the development of language in children, tell the world, books, studies exist that say the average child, the brain is so wired by God that when you are grown, not when you are old, but when you are a child, 6 languages at the same time without any difficulty. Yes. I'm not saying 2, 6 languages. That can learn 6 languages at the same time without suffering any confusion whatsoever. So a little child can walk out of his mother's house and be playing with Urobo children out there and learn Urobo from there. His mother may go to the market where the woman who is the next person in his song is a Nube woman. He can pick up the Nube language there. And so on. He can end up speaking 6 languages without any difficulty. So the fear that if your child is speaking Yoruba, he cannot learn English is a lie. It is not true. Your child can learn English and Yoruba at the same time perfectly. In the 19th century in Lagos, most children spoke English, Portuguese, and Yoruba. In Lagos, in our Lagos, most children spoke Portuguese, English, and Yoruba, and they did well. So there is no reason why you are forcing your child to. And another thing that the scientists who study language development in children are saying, this is scary. Listen to this. This is very scary. The wiring that God has done to make it possible for children to learn language, don't interfere with it. When you are telling your child not to speak the language that is ordinarily exposed to in the community, your child plays with other Yoruba children out there, council, you say you must not. You are interfering with that natural facility that God put there. Stop doing it. Because the danger, big danger in that is that you interfere with it, you disrupt it. He may not be able to learn any language properly again. Any language, including the one you are forcing him to learn. So it's a dangerous practice. Stop interfering. We must get our parents to recognize. Stop interfering with your child's process of learning languages. Do not bother. He will do fine with up to 6 languages without any difficulty. Leave him alone. Let God's work be done. Do not interfere with it. That is important. So you now look at today, okay. Oh, our children don't speak Yoruba, they speak English. What type of English are they speaking? They don't speak as good English as their own parents. They don't write as good English as their parents anymore. So, as the years go, the English that we are writing and speaking is getting worse and worse. Is it because we have is our interference with the learning facility in the brain of our children part of the problem? University graduates come to me, sir, we need, and I say, okay, go and write something, and and they cannot write 2 sentences correct. A good friend of mine told me last night, he was invited to come to some sort of meeting to discuss something in one of our states. And a retired permanent secretary wrote the instructions for that meeting, for that conference, for important people in that state. He said, when he arrived in the evening and they gave it to him, and they put him in the hotel where he was going to, he could not read what was in that paper. It was meaningless. That instruction paper, just about 2 things, was mostly meaningless. He couldn't read it. That's what we have become. So we are becoming educated people who have no language. It is sad. I've just finished writing a book, which is going to be, I hope, bigger, not bigger in size, but bigger in its message, and more influential than the history of Yoruba. And should be in the market in a few months. I'm describing the Urbanization to the Urbanization. It's not history. It's a description of the Yoruba people to the Yoruba people. How did this come? Another question.
Hi. Thank you very much, sir. I would say this, we put some fire in my belly. I remember before Mr. Shea the first time, and we had some conversation. And it went on and on. It was supposed to be a 5-minute meeting. And I think we spent close to 1 hour just discussing. I think it was in 2013, I started looking at Nigeria generally and looking to invest in the Nigerian business. I was outside the country, I was in the UK. And I said I wanted to come on for specific reasons. I believe that this nation at this time needs a revolution. And it's not a revolution of battles and wars and axes and drums. I think I think there's a major shift as well in the Urbanization as a whole. And I'm grateful for this platform right now. I'm very glad that I could have sent a few people to say, come, go and tell that thing and scribble some things down. But I'm very happy. There are a few things that caught my attention when you were speaking, sir. And one of them was about the fact that the Urbanization created immense wealth. There were wealthy people. And how did they do that? You talked about collaboration. Right now, I'll say that in every place I've been, including Japan, it's been very difficult finding Yorubas who have integrity that you can do business with. Once they say a hey, tomorrow it will become the same. So it's become very difficult for us to collaborate. It's terrible. In these times, people are inventing and doing all sorts of things. And I believe if we stay that way, we will be one of the very best in the world right now as a people and as a nation. And I don't know what the way forward is. How do we change the mentality of the Yoruba man for him to understand that the things that kept us together was collaboration and our integrity. We kept our word. We were people who were bound together by our own words. We didn't break them. And I think if there was a way that we can shift that in our mentality, we could be on the verge of a major breakthrough. Secondly, I want to talk about the fact that as a people then, I feel that we're a people of action. Right now, I've been to a few meetings every day, and what I see is just people talking and not doing nothing. I wouldn't know what we talk about then. They spoke. They were cerebrally outstanding and intelligent people, but they also did. They moved. They collaborated and did things. But right now, we see a lot of people just talk and do nothing. We're too dependent. How is it that we can become independent and come together and do things and start to move things, and don't just form associations and societies for speeches and talks. You go to the tailoring or whatever now, they just talk and hey, fashion, but they don't do anything. They're not movers and shakers of anything. I don't know, sir. You've been part of that world and you're part of our world as well. How can we start to do these things? What can we really do that will affect the next generation? I have children, but sometimes I look at them and I don't know what they were born outside of the country maybe, but what will they inherit from me? I've inherited a few things from my own father. What will they inherit from me that I'll say, yes, in this generation, yes, we are English-speaking generation, but this is what we have put down, and this is what you guys will inherit. So we're talking about our past and our future. What can we do to merge these things together at this time? Thank you very much, sir.
The problems are big. But I have confidence in the Urbanization. We are a big nation. Our capabilities are big. And all that we need to do is to harness those capabilities properly now. I wouldn't wait for government. I will not wait for any government. I will call on every Yoruba person to seriously begin to think of what we can do. Okay, I will give you an example. In 1965, Singapore was part of the country of Malaysia, the Malaysian Federation, where it was a terrible, troublesome province. They had nothing. They had no land, no minerals, no forest, no. Even the water they drank was piped from the mainland. They depended completely on it. But there was so much poverty. Like our young people are now, their young people had no jobs. And so they were rioting, creating rings around politicians and doing violence and rioting all the time. They were unemployed and poorly educated. Those of them who were educated went to very poor schools. Then one disaster befell their province. You know what the disaster was? They began to riot. They were rioting for about 3 months, and the central government was sending army, their police, their army, and they were rioting without stop. So the prime minister went to Parliament and said, listen, Singapore, only wow, how? Let them go away. They don't have to be part of our country. So they passed a resolution to expel Singapore. Have you ever seen a country being expelled from They expel, go. You are no longer part of Malaysia from today. So the most senior politician from there, one lawyer, is trained in Britain as a lawyer, went back home, look at the policies and so on. It fell to his law to announce that to the people of Singapore. We have been expelled. And he was weeping on the radio as he was talking to them. Listen, people of Singapore, we are finished. What are we going to read? We have nothing. Even the water we drink. This is a day of anguish for me and for Singapore. They were crying. And yet, before 10 years later, Singapore was one of the most successful economies in the world.
Yes.
I was sent to go there in 1976 when we were preparing for the UN. I went to Singapore in 1976. Unbelievable. All the young people were walking and they got promotion, attending classes to get some more qualifications so as to move on and so on and so forth. That's what Singapore became in less than 10 years. And what was the secret? The secret is clear. Then Banji told them, listen, if we want to continue to do the way we've been doing, all the right politicians who crookedness, we need the nation fight. So, is that what you want to do? We are finished. But if we want to get off the ground, let us first of all put some order in our streets. No more politics anymore. So on and so forth. Politicians sign an oath to be responsible, reasonable, no drugs anymore, nothing. Then the next thing is we are going to train our young people. Atele to mo, atele to your system, atele to your system. We are going to train them to be employable. Large numbers of our boys roaming around in the streets today are all have no skill whatsoever. They don't, even the language they speak is poor. So even if you have a job and you invite them to an interview, you won't take them. It's that bad. So it's not unemployment, it's not that they are unemployed. They are unemployed. And we have to change that. We have to change that. We have to find ways to change from that. The government will give you license to start a training. If you have a little business, you can start a training corner in your office. But it has to be so that the people who go to this training center will have a skill. Tailor, electrician, plumber, etc. Every little thing. Do you know that in this Yoruba land, if you want to build a house, you cannot get a plumber? A Russian company won contract to do cleaning of ships in Apapa port. The government of Nigeria says they must employ Nigerian plumbers because that's what they mostly need. People will clean the ships, repair drainage, and so on and so forth. They wouldn't get the permission to go and recruit plumbers from Russia. Yes, there are no plumbers. Do you know if you want a cook or a steward now, anywhere in Yoruba, you have to go to Benin Republic. And our children are roaming around in the streets. The problem is big. But as I said, the Urbanization is big. And a very big capability. All we need to do is to know these things and begin to attend to them. It's not a question of Nigeria. Let Nigeria go somewhere. Let Nigeria has chosen its way. We have turned on and joined our way and traveled along with Nigeria in that way. We have come to disaster from that journey. It's better, it is time for us to turn back and go our own way. And that's the only direction. If we are following Nigeria, we are, oil, we own the oil. Nobody works. You must cook something together, another to get your own share of the oil. If that's what our elite is doing, and our young people are milling around them and saying, Baba. So this, everywhere you go. If that's what we are doing, we are done. We are done. We are not Hausa. We are not Fulani. We are Yoruba. We walk. We don't go about begging in the streets. That's not our way. The Yoruba man doesn't beg. And so, what I say is, the journey along the road that Nigeria has chosen leads only to disaster. It has brought us to the verge of disaster. We must now stop and turn back and begin to be ourselves. All these children who are roaming around, let's find some way to give them some skill, and they will do the work. Well, we can produce entrepreneurs galore in Yoruba land in 2 or 3 years if we put our heart to it. But what we have been doing is working for the government. When you talk of government, I say good luck. But when you say the Yoruba man, I say, yeah. I made a statement once, I wrote something once, I said, well, when all this trouble has been looked at forwards and backwards, everything is said and done, we are Yoruba. And that's saying a very big thing indeed. Yes, we are Yoruba. There is a lot we can do. I have that confidence. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prof. I think we have to appreciate what the Dawn Commission is doing. A revolution is not made by the masses. Usually, some people organize it. Dawn represents that small group, and we have to be grateful to them. The problem of realizing, of waking up, that we are getting far from our roots is a global one. In the United States, for example, those who have emigrated to that country have come to the realization that the children they produce are a problem to them because they don't have any ways at all. Because of this, they have established a summer school somewhere in Maryland. And during the summer months, they send their children to this school to learn languages, culture, and so on. One of the books they produced, you have a chapter in it, and a chapter in it. So, what the Dawn is doing is to find the ABC of reinventing ourselves, our culture. But the problem is more than just history. Language is very important. And we cannot get anywhere without trying to let our people know. The lady who spoke there talked about advocacy. We have to impress it upon the policy makers in our region that our language is very, very important. And I think it has to be part of the conditions for getting certification after maybe primary school, secondary school. Even those who are not Yoruba appreciate what the history that you have given to us. And there is one of the Scandinavian countries, I've forgotten now, has made the study of Yoruba one of their language requirements, the Scandinavian country. So when you see this sort of evolution that will bring back the past and modernize the past and make it working, I am very happy that we spoke about you of Singapore. Fortunately, he has a book that he wrote, which is very popular among politicians. The problem is, and until the last intervention is about a few minutes ago, talking about we have to rediscover ourselves within the context of Nigeria. What I would have wanted to hear more about is the context, the political context under which we can effect this revolution that we're talking about. The way the country is constituted at the moment is a problem. It's one of the burdens that I think anybody who wants to effect a revolution of this sort that we're talking about will have. Our culture, politics, and history, everything is highly centralized. And how can we work under this context of unification, of unitary government, when we cannot take individual policies that will advance the sort of thing that we're talking about? So could you kindly address first on the issue of context, the political context? You was lucky, he was sent back, and they have to rediscover, a way of coping with life. But we cannot view ourselves out of Nigeria. We can't expel ourselves out of Nigeria. We are still within it. What can we do within the context under which we are operating, in anticipation of a context that will be more conducive to the sort of thing that we are talking about? If the Western Nigeria had remained the Western Nigeria, things would be different. But the context has changed, and the environment has changed. The leadership has changed. Strategies will have to be devised to cope with what we are facing now. This is our challenge. And how do we go about modeling, refining strategies? Are we going to use the tunnel diplomacy, for example, and that is work with what we have and go this way, go that way in order to reach the end? And that is the tunnel diplomacy. What can we do under the circumstances in which we find ourselves politically? Because there are certain things you just cannot do. There's only one university in Nigeria, for example, and the name of the university is called NUC. They decide the courses you want to go to any university. If you have spent a year in one university in Nigeria, go to another one that you want to continue. You will find the same courses that you have taken. They are all repeated. The title, the descriptions, everything. The uniform situation does not allow individual institutions to have an identity and problem. So please address the political context within which we can effect the sort of changes and transformations that we consider the immediate ones.
Okay. Now we've come to a difficult, very difficult, and I urge you, please, the British who ruled Nigeria naturally wanted to give independence to Nigeria in such a way that they will continue to have control over, especially the economy of Nigeria. So they wanted to find what they call a friendly people in force to hand Nigeria to at independence. They decided that the friendly people are the Hausa Fulani of northern Nigeria. They were the least educated people in Nigeria. And so the idea is that they will be more amenable than Yoruba for British influence. And so the country was handed over to them. The elections were rigged. So believe them, it's there, the document is there now. There's no, I don't think we say, oh, it is alleged, that type of language. Or we think the elections were, no, we don't think. And there's no allegation. The elections were rigged and the census was rigged to make the North look, and attempts to give the small peoples of Nigeria regions of their own in order to make the federation more sensible was resisted. A commission was set up to find out what shall we do in view of the protest of these small people, the people of the Midwest, the people of Calabar, the people of the Middle Belt, the people of the Northeast, and so on. They wanted their own region, and we would have ended up with at least about 7 or 8 regions, and would have made the federation more equitable. The British didn't want that, because that would remove the power of the Fulani that they want to rule Nigeria. So they pushed us into independence under that of our rule. And that's what we've been dealing with since then. The people who were handed the country believe that the British want them to rule Nigeria forever. And so what they are doing is to weaken the rest of the peoples of Nigeria so that they can continue to control Nigeria. And so now we cannot teach our history to our children. We cannot teach our language in our schools. We cannot, because they want to be sure that the Urbanization goes down, the Urbanization goes down, and there is in 2000 and 2001, one of their historians, Yusuf Usman, historian from Ahmadu Bello University, wrote 2 treatises, 2 big papers on this subject, and he said the problem of Nigeria will never be solved by any respect for the nationalities of Nigeria. It will be solved by subduing them and creating a Nigerian mainstream. He was working for Center for Democratic Research and Training in Abuja, said that at the time. The 2 treatises exist. And that's what the Northerners are implementing. From time to time, you hear Northerners give a lecture and repeat what Usman said. All right. Ribadu, former presidential candidate, gave such a lecture about 2 years ago at Ahmadu Bello University, repeating exactly what So that's what they're. All these, you don't teach your language, you do something, the curriculum for schools is the same, the curriculum for universities is the same, and so on and so forth. It is the policy of the Hausa Fulani to emasculate, to destroy the other nationalities of Nigeria and create a single Nigerian nationality. So what is the answer? Our parents say, oh, no, you know, we get the other people towards you. Oh, no, you know, we get them towards you. We Yoruba have to decide what we want to do. We want to keep quiet, lie down, and die.
as a nation, or we want to shake ourselves and revive and begin to live again as a vibrant nation, we have to take our decision. And one of the reasons I have chosen to give up everything abroad and return home at this time is that the Yoruba nation is to shake itself up. And but we have to do it because we are Yoruba. We have to do it with methods that will succeed. One is that there are a lot of things we can do on our own without any reference to Nigeria. That is a lot. There's a lot we can do without any reference to Nigeria. If we Yoruba decide today we are going to set up centers for training our university graduates who are in the streets and give them skills to become employable business managers, business owners, etc., entrepreneurs, and something can stop us. Somebody can stop us. I know that they will try to stop us, because they will never allow us to do anything without they are trying to stop us. The government of Governor Jakande tried to build motor rail system in Lagos State. The federal government came in and said, no, we cancel it. And they cancelled it. An idea that, because the Jakande government had already reached very far with the people who are coming to build the rail system. So they called a big debt in Lagos State for walking out of the contract. I hear that it's probable that Lagos State is still paying that debt now.
Yeah.
We are going to build the Lagos Badagry Road. Federal government says you cannot build it. If you touch it, we'll take it for all the stuff. And people were dying there every day. Lagos Ibadan Expressway. Nobody can do it. Only the federal government can do it. But the federal government won't do it. And so it goes down and down and down. Listen, you reach a point at which you then tell yourself, as a people, we won't take this anymore. We won't take this anymore. And we can do that without causing any revolution. We don't say we want to leave Nigeria. We don't want to break up Nigeria. That's not what we are saying yet. What we are saying now is that we want to be free to live as human beings in the context of Nigeria. And we must be ready to. We must be ready. It may reach a point at which you young people will organize you, send you to go around the world, to tell the world, tell the United Nations, African Union, European Union, everybody. We are being prevented from teaching and learning our language in our country. And it's against the law of nature, it's against the international law for anybody to do that. The federal government is doing a lot of things they don't have the legal authority to do, and we let them. The federal government has no right to impose a curriculum on universities or even on schools. It is time that we reach a point at which we say, whatever you want to do, go on and do it. We are not rebelling. Our children are not going around throwing bombs. Our children are not going around killing people. We say we want to teach our language and our history to our people, and we go on and institute the measures. But there has to be some. I know that if a state government says, oh, we are going to teach Yoruba history, we are going to teach Yoruba language, they will say we will draw, they won't give you education. So the first step is our states must become as self-reliant as possible. so that they don't need it. Western region used to lend money to Nigeria. Used to lend money to the federal government of Nigeria. We didn't need the federal government. We did not need the federal government. It was the federal government of Balewa who used to come to Ibadan to borrow money. We can get back to that. So the first thing is, let's make ourselves independent. And then let us begin to do what we want to do for ourselves. Without breaking the laws of Nigeria, without wanting yet to get out of Nigeria. And so that's the answer really. God himself said in his holy word, when the Bible says, well, if you deny me, does that mean I will deny myself? If you say we Yoruba don't exist, is that the final word? I say, then that is okay, I will be. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you very much. That was a long one. I decided to let it play because I might as well listen to everything. And that was beautiful. That was really good. And it's a privilege, really, to listen to someone like Professor Banji Akintoye. And some of the things that he talked about, we talk about these things on this platform, but it's very good to hear elders, say these things. I think what also goes to show is that many of the things that we're thinking, our fathers have thought it, they're still thinking, they're working on it. Earlier today, someone sent me a very important document about that some of the elders worked on, Constitution for Yoruba people for Western region, the idea of restructuring Nigeria and everything. It just goes to show that, right? And it's also important for us to acknowledge these things, because if you don't, you assume that you have all the ideas. Meanwhile, the ones who have gone ahead of you, they've made certain mistakes, they've corrected those things, they factor those things into whatever they're doing right now, so that way we can learn from them and build on whatever foundation they're laying. So it's a blessing to have these people, and I hope we've learned a lot. We started talking about, we called it today's session the Untold Genius of the Yoruba civilization. So we went all the way back and talked about things we did 1,000 years ago and so on and so forth. But then he went on to talk about what happened before independence, at independence, during the Second Republic, and so on and so forth. And someone says, really? Oh, I hope it's better now. So the idea basically is that we're blessed to have him, and I hope you got some things from there. We spent a lot of time listening. All the questions you want to ask, I'm sure you already answered. All right, so we're just going to move on and call it a day. We'll be here tomorrow at 4 p.m. if your time, West African time. If you're joining us for the first time, we usually have the sessions every day, every weekday, Monday to Friday, 4 p.m. if your time, West African time. So please join us tomorrow. That will be a full live session, and we'll get into the news. We'll talk about the news. We'll talk about like a new topic as well. We're discussing our on trial. So tomorrow we'll be talking about. We'll be going on, in that series to talk about other things that happened after the arrest. So that will be tomorrow, and then we'll also delve into the news and so on and so forth. Thank you very much for being part of today's session. I'm not taking any questions because they asked a lot of questions in that video, and Baba Akintoye was gracious enough to answer those questions, and they were brilliant answers. And I hope that we are learning, and that also, Nigeria gets better, is restructured to actually reflect its true nature and its true composition, and that way all the groups in Nigeria can progress rather than this unitary system that keeps everybody down, and everybody just bickering and trying to pull each other down. Meanwhile, I should also say that some things have changed. Baba mentioned some things about the Badagry Road. It's been built now. We talked about Lagos Ibadan Expressway. That's been built now. Just to say that we're not where we were in 2016. Again, the video we listened to was actually from an event that was organized by Dawn Commission in 2016. So what you just listened to right now was actually from 2016. So we've made progress in the last 9 years, and that's good. We've made progress, but we could have gone faster than this if we had a better structure than what we've had all these years. And you see what the president is doing at the moment. It looks like, it's not even like it looks like, the reality is that he's actually restructuring Nigeria, and I can't wait for a second term. I really can't, because I can imagine, all right, the things that's going to be put in place once that is sorted, and I hope that, these things are going to happen very fast so that Nigeria can actually, take its right of place in the community of nations. But particularly Yoruba people, we need to move fast, right? And I don't know, every time we have this conversation, I don't know if you remember, we've talked about Singapore and Malaysia, and Baba was just referring to those nations. It's quite nice when you listen to elders refer to these things. Somehow it, that what you're saying is right. Okay, and hopefully we'll catch up at some point. Hopefully it's not too late. I don't think it's too late. It's never late, really, but we just need to move very fast. But thank you very much for listening across all platforms, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter, and right here on TikTok. Thank you so much for being part of today's session. We're going to move on now and just have the anthems, and then we'll call it today. Here's the Nigerian anthem, and then we'll have the Yoruba anthem. Thank you very much for listening.
Nigeria, we hail thee, our own dear native land. Though tribe and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. Nigerians all are proud to serve our sovereign motherland. Our flag shall be a symbol that truth and justice reign. In peace all battle honored, and this we count as gain. To hand unto our children a banner without stain. Oh, creation, grant this our one request. Help us to build a nation where no man is oppressed. And so with peace and plenty, Nigeria may be blessed. Nigeria may be ìgbàgbọ́ wà ní pé láti ṣọ̀kan àtòmìnira ní ẹ jẹ́ ká máa lépa tẹ̀síwájú fọ̀pọ̀ ire àtòhun tó dára. Ọmọ òkàdìdé bọ́ sípò ẹ̀tọ́ rẹ̀. Ìwọ ni ìmọ́lẹ̀ gbogbo adúláwọ̀.
Àwa ni ìmọ́lẹ̀ ògo adúláwọ̀, ìmọ́lẹ̀ wọ̀ ni wọ́.
Èbó ní bàjẹ́, Nàìjíríà náà ní.
Àwọn nǹkan tí àwọn aṣíwájú wa ní lọ́kàn máa ń gbèrò fún ilẹ̀ Yorùbá láyé gbogbo àtìmọ́ṣẹ́. Ǹjẹ́ káwọn náà ṣe láyàn fún wa ní okun àtagbára àti ọgbọ́n àti ìmọ̀ àti òye láti ṣe. Thank you very much for being part of today's session. I'll see you again tomorrow at 4 p.m. Ife time, West African time. To have a lovely, lovely, lovely evening. God bless you. Ó dàárọ̀.